Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you doing? Hope you are all well. Here I am, it's January 2026 and I'm filming this in my garage. I'm doing a little bit of work on my motorbikes. And my mind was wandering a little bit. I'm polishing up a crankcase, and you don't have to concentrate when you're polishing on a crankcase. So my mind was wandering a bit, and I'm thinking 2026. And I was thinking about a coin that I found when I was metal detecting last year. It was a 1936 coin, and it had a picture on the front of King George V. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, 90 years ago in 1936 there was three kings. And also in 1066, which is 960 years ago, there was also three kings. So that ended in a 6, 1066. 1936 ended in a 6. And there was three kings then. So in 1936, at the beginning of 1936, King George V was on the phone. On the phone? No, he wasn't. He was on the throne. So in 1936, King George V, he was on the throne, but he died. And Edward VIII, his son, his first eldest son, he became king. Now Edward VIII, he didn't really want to be the king. He wanted to fly aeroplanes and do all the great things that the 1930s had to offer. And as the year went on, he was involved with an American lady called Wallis Simpson, and he wanted to marry her. But the trouble was, Wallis Simpson was already married, and she'd been married before and divorced. So the people in charge of the government and it was, remember, the 1930s were a different time. They said that wasn't a good idea, and he couldn't do both. He couldn't marry Wallis Simpson and be the king. So he decided to abdicate. So in 1936 he abdicated, and his younger brother, George, who became George the Sixth. I'm trying to count on my fingers there. Who became George the Sixth? He took on the mantle of king. He never expected to be the king. He never really wanted to be the king. He hadn't been trained to be the king. But nevertheless, he took it on, and it was his duty. And King George VI, he was the king until the end of that year. He was actually reigned until 52, when he passed away, and Queen Elizabeth II became queen, and her son Charles is now the king in 2026. So that was the year of three kings. 1936, it was King George V, Edward VIII, and King George VI. Going back 960 years to 1066, there was also three kings. Now the beginning of 1066, Edward the Confessor was still on the throne. He didn't have any children, so when he passed away, there was a guy called Harold Godwinson. Now he was an earl in England at the time, a very wealthy man, very powerful man, and he was at the king's deathbed when King Edward the Confessor passed away. And when the king died, Harold Godwinson said that on his deathbed, Edward the Confessor said that he passed the country, he passed the crown, he passed the throne on to Harold Godwinson. So, hurrah, Harold Godwinson is now the King of England. So that's the second king in that year of 1066. There was a couple of other guys who wanted the throne of England. One of them was a guy called Harold Hardrada. Hardrada means hard ruler. He was a Scandinavian guy. He said that because some of his forebears had been King of England, that the throne should go to him. And he was supported, funnily enough, well, it wasn't funny at the time, I'm sure, but he was supported by a guy called Tostig. Now, Tostig was Harold Godwinson's brother. So Tostig kind of wanted a slice of what his brother had, went and joined Harold Hardrada. They sailed across from Scandinavia and invaded the north of England. Harold Godwinson got his army together, his housecarls and some of the local militia, and they headed north, and they met up with Harold Hardrada and his army at the place called Stamford Bridge, and there was a battle there, Battle of Stamford Bridge, where Harold Godwinson, King Harold, was successful. He was victorious. He beat these Scandinavians. The brother Tostig got killed, and so did Harold Hardrada. They were both killed on the battlefield. So they're all up there in the north of England celebrating their victory. Meantime, in Normandy, a guy called William Duke of Normandy, otherwise known as William the Bastard, he sailed across the Channel and landed in Pevensey on the south coast of England, because he decided he had a claim. He had a claim to the throne. I had promised him the throne of England, and he actually swore that this was the case on a box of holy relics. So it's there. It's on the Bay of Tapestry, so it's got to be true. Like, I'm getting a lot of this from social media, so it's on the internet, so it's got to be true, wasn't it? Nah, kidding. I'm kidding. So that was William of Normandy. He sailed across. He got his army together, and he got the backing from the Pope, and they came across and invaded England from the south. King Harold then had to march from the north of England, from where he'd been fighting up at Stamford Bridge, down to the south of England to meet William of Normandy's army. So that was a long march. It took them a few days, and they were tired, and they'd lost a lot of men in the battle, and the march down. They picked up a few more willing soldiers, a few more soldiers, a bit more reinforcements for his army, and then they met at a place called Senlac Hill near Hastings, where William of Normandy and King Harold of England they're set to battle. King Harold's men formed a shield wall at the top of the hill and kept repelling the Norman knights as they came up the hill, and then, whether by accident or by design, one flank of the Norman knights retreated. The English soldiers, the Saxon soldiers, the Saxon soldiers, they ran down the hill after them and chased them, and therefore breaking the shield wall. Then the Normans came up that flank, round the back, and then they beat King Harold's army. Again, going back to the Bay of Tapestry, there's a what do you call it when they do the stitching? Anyway, there's a picture of him, and he's got this arrow in his eye, and that's where the thing from the King Harold getting killed by the arrow in the eye came from. The kind of scientists, historians have looked at it, and archaeologists have looked at it, and the conservators have looked at it, and they kind of think that maybe it wasn't originally an arrow, it might have been something else. But anyway, that's where the King Harold in the eye with an arrow came from. So 1066, three kings: Edward the Confessor, King Harold, and William the Conqueror. So three kings in 1066, 960 years ago. Three kings in 936, 90 years ago. Let's just hope and pray that 2026 there ain't going to be three kings. Let's hope King Charles just carries on doing his job. There's a fair few. There's too many wannabe kings in the world at the minute. So let's just hope that doesn't go any further. Let's wish him well, eh? And that's it. That was me meanderings. That was the way my mind was working. I thought I'd share it with you. I hope you found it interesting. Laughing at me mistakes and me accent and me getting words wrong and that. It's always good. So anyway, that's it. January 2026. Let's have a really good year. Take care, guys. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.